podcast where we talk about Formula One and the British Touring Car Championship. I'm Tom, and we're joined by Nick. How are you, Nick?
I'm all good, thank you.
And normally, this is hosted and edited and produced and researched by Colin Barr. I said this last week, or last episode, but he was in Canada last time and he's in Hungary, Budapest this time. So his world tour continues.
Indeed. Scotsman on tour.
So yeah, have a good trip, Colin. Apologies in advance. So you just got us two to ramble on. We're going to cover the Belgian Grand Prix at the start and Formula One news before that. And then following the F1, we're going to talk about the British Touring Car Championship, the recent rounds from Thruxton, all three races. Sound good?
Oh, yes.
News update.
So I think we'll just jump into the Formula One news, and we'll skip through these because you can read them all on autosport.com or motorsport.com or racefans.net or wherever you choose to get your news from. First thing is Audi is joining as a power unit provider, and maybe a bit more, who knows, in 2026. Any opinions about the four rings joining the grid?
It's just going to be good for a start, just to have a new manufacturer, maybe, but engine supplier at least. I'm a bit confused still about where Porsche are coming in, because they're supposed to be buying 50-ish% of Red Bull and be an engine supplier, but does that mean they're a separate engine supplier to Audi?
So from a report on motorsport.com that I've seen, it is supposedly, even though it's all TBC, a separate deal. Even though, yes, you're right, Volkswagen Audi Group includes Audi and Porsche, so they will be entering and competing against each other potentially. For now, though, the only thing we know for definite is Porsche seems to be buying into Red Bull Advanced Engineering, which is not necessarily the Formula One team. But it does seem to be that they're working on a potential power unit for these new rules, which are also 2026, correct?
Yes.
And that's why Audi's joining in, which is more emphasis on the hybridization. I believe.
They're removing one of the hybrids and using more of the other one. So the MGU-H, I think it is, the one that's to do with the turbo, is being got rid of completely. And the MGU-K will be expanded to make up for that loss. Cool.
So I think that the greater emphasis on the more traditional, let's say, road car relatable electrification element has pushed Audi over the edge, because there's been rumours that they've been flirting with Formula 1 for a while, right? And there's no smoke without fire, seemingly.
Yeah.
So they had this launch at Spa with like a branded up generic car, but the word is that they'll potentially buy into the Sauber team, and it could be as early as next year, because also at the same time, which would align, the Alfa Romeo sponsorship of that team will end at the end of 2023, which I think we speculated on before, right?
Yes. They'd only ever confirmed on a rolling basis that they would be continuing.
Right.
So they said they will be there next year, quite some time ago now, but they never said if they would be there after that or not. Yeah,
I think one element to this, which are purely speculation on my part, which is what we said before in the podcast, is since the Alfa Romeo deal happened, when it was Fiat Chrysler Automobiles, or FCA, they then merged with PSA, the Peugeot Citroën Group or Alliance, can't remember what the exact word is, and they've created a mega group called Stellantis, which the Sniff Petrol podcast is right in saying that it sounds like a sort of 90s pop group, Stellantis. And I just think with all those different companies, and the PSA group, which effectively runs this new big group of companies, which includes Fiat and Chrysler, a Dodge, a Jeep, and Alfa Romeo and Maserati, they're not really too keen on Formula One, I don't think. In the meantime, Maserati, which is part of that group, has been announced as joining Formula E. The group has a big electric car focus, and so we speculated, okay, Alfa Romeo's going to disappear. This seems to be what has happened, but it also coincides with potentially Audi budging in. So good for Sauber.
Oh yeah,
another partner.
Yeah, and looking to keep the team there as well. I think one of the things with the Andretti potential deal that was being bandied around was that they wanted to move from Hinwil, Sauber's base, whereas Audi were quite happy for them to continue there, allegedly, because we don't know if that's all true, but that's what's been said.
Of course. It will all come out in the wash. But again, Jonathan Noble on motorsport.com doing some sterling work, clarifying a few things of what we know so far.
Is Alfa Romeo still linked with Ferrari? As a company, I mean.
So, yes and no. So, technically, Ferrari was spun off and was put onto the stock exchange. So, you could buy shares in just Ferrari separately. But my understanding is some of the family... That's not 100% of the company. Some of the family ownership is tied together. But they have a separate board. But Ferrari products definitely still share, how should we say, synergies and parts and allegedly parts of engines with Alfa Romeo and Maserati. And
it was only to do with the wording of the press release from Alfa Romeo saying we will be looking to see how we can continue in our branding, etc. I wondered if they were going to be on the Ferrari in a few years' time. Not as an Alfa Romeo Ferrari.
Oh,
but,
they could be.
Just like a small badging somewhere.
Yeah.
Because I think they've done that in the past.
A sponsor somewhere. They definitely have, when they were more closely aligned.
Yeah.
There's some symbiotic relationship there, but it's not an out-and-out ownership like it was because, like I say, Ferrari's public. But, allegedly the V6 engine in the Giulia Quadrifoglio is just a Ferrari V8 with 2 cylinders lopped off it. And so things like this. And it makes me laugh as well because at the minute they have to wear... I don't know if it was in this race, but all season I don't know if you noticed that Bottas and Zhou on the car, it says Alfa Romeo Tonale, which is their new SUV. But, if you just read it if you don't know how it's pronounced and you're from the north like me, it looks like a misspelling of toenail. It's the most unfortunate name for a car, I think.
Yes.
We should probably move on. And let's talk about Ricciardo now. Is there anywhere left for him to go after he's announced that he's leaving McLaren?
I can only see 3 potential teams he could go to. And 2 of those, technically, I'm not sure there's room for him, but I'm sure they could make room if they needed to. He can go to Haas, Williams, or Alfa Romeo / Sauber, is what I can see. But the Alfa Romeo option, I think, is just... Financially, it won't work because they had to get Zhou in to cover that.
Yep.
So I can't see them getting rid of Zhou, and Bottas is on a multi-year contract. Haas have definitely inquired about him, and the rumours are that Schumacher won't be there next year. Whereas Williams, I just don't know if they can afford him.
Yeah, if you were... Well, there's that. But also, if you were Jost Capito for a second, if you woke up in the morning and you became Jost, would you want him? Would you want Ricciardo? Would anyone want Ricciardo, basically, if you were the team manager?
From a PR point of view, definitely, I think. He brings branding,
a smile,
sponsorship, all sorts of things like that. But, yeah, on the driving point of view, it's hard to say because McLaren is the only team where he's struggled completely. He did struggle at Renault, but he then came good after a year or so there.
He did.
So, is it just the environment or the car at McLaren that just didn't suit him?
Is it the MCL 36, I think, this year's car?
Mm-hmm.
Wrong there.
Yeah.
I think that is a very good point. It's clearly been smashed by Norris, and Norris is vastly more inexperienced. But he's no mug. And it could be a mental thing. You know, when your dander's down and then there's all these rumours going on, it definitely affects things. There have been a couple of times this year where he's done okay, but all too few far between. And now there's just nothing going on there, is there?
No.
Yeah, it could just be one of those things where if he's in even an average car next year, all of a sudden he could find that spark again.
Yeah, plus McLaren is basically revolving around Norris. He's
on the long-term contract. He's the star, right?
Yeah. Whereas if he went to one of these lower teams, he would be the de facto number 1, I suppose. Or he would not be the number 2.
Yeah, that's true.
And that can make a big difference.
I think the initial thing was, they'll just switch across to Alpine, but now there are unsubstantiated rumours that Gasly could be going there. Ocon has been saying here by Adam Cooper and motorsport.com again that Ocon's tensions with Gasly are magically disappeared, which is perhaps a tell. Do you think that's a good move for Gasly if that happens?
Oh, it's one I've been saying for a few years that Gasly will end up at Alpine, or Renault, as I said originally. And I think it does make sense for both parties, because where's Gasly going at Red Bull / AlphaTauri? He's not getting in the main team, and you're not really going to do much from the junior or sister team. So yeah, Alpine gives him a potential chance some down the line to challenge for race wins or even championships if they come good.
Which is a big if, but I think I fully agree with you. He's got to, if he ever gets a chance from any other team, basically, take it, because he has to know in himself that he could do the job outside of the Red Bull. I'm going to say Red Bull content pool, but that's their image media library. But talent pool is what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And so I really hope that happens. But again, we'll have to see. Ricardo could end up there still. There's all sorts of things going on, when it comes to contracts, as we've seen recently with Piastri. It could all go the wrong way up, let's say. Speaking of which, was it Monday you were saying the Contract Recognition Board had a discussion, but it's not decided yet? That's
when they were supposed to meet to discuss the Piastri case. As to either when we hear the results or when the results are coming out, we don't know. Hopefully soon. I believe it's supposed to be sometime this week, but I don't know if it's one of those things that could drag.
It could be, and that's not good for anyone involved.
No.
It's been it just doesn't look good, the whole thing from Mark Webber. It doesn't reflect well on Piastri or McLaren. And then Alpine's been a bit of a baby about it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Or Otmar has, on their behalf, let's say. But
yes. Zach Brown was not impressed. Did you hear his quote as well?
I did not hear Zach Brown's quote.
When Otmar was... I'm going to paraphrase because I can't remember the exact thingy, but Otmar said about how Piastri should have more integrity, etc.
I did see that.
And Zach Brown then said someone who got fined and points deducted for copying another team's car should not be talking about integrity. Something along those lines, anyway.
Well, that's superb.
So they're still...
Although, let's be real, Zach Brown has got 77 drivers on him.
Yes.
Across all multiple disciplines. So the thing with Piastri is, and I just want to delve back into this really briefly, from his point of view, he's got a contract with Alpine and they've helped fund Party's career. Brilliant. But everybody said the Alonso move to Aston Martin was a surprise, and it was done over a weekend.
Yeah.
And nobody knew. If that was the case, if you're Piastri a week or a month beforehand, it's looking like Alonso's signed up for another year for Alpine. In fact, publicly, they're pushing for... Alonso wanted a multiple-year deal.
Yeah.
He didn't want just this one-year thing. So you all think... So Piastri does not have a race seat at that point, if that continues.
Yeah.
If what he knows from the inside that, Alpine's trying to sign Alonso up for another 2 years, he's not on the grid. And the time is now, because you never know if there's another youngster coming through that then your opportunity's missed. So I actually do not bemoan him or his management team for seeking a drive somewhere else.
Oh yeah,
so I know it looks very negative and it's been handled in a very strange way, but I just think it's important not to forget that as it stood without Alonso's crazy move to the Silverstone-based team, he would be without a drive for another 2 years.
Yeah, and I think that he will not be at Alpine next year, regardless of whether they rule that he has a valid contract with them. That surely cannot happen after all that's gone on.
Who would want it? Who would want it? Mind you, we've seen it before with Jenson Button going back to Honda, was it? Or BR Honda?
Yeah, and
after he signed for Williams.
Piastri is still at Alpine at the moment. He's still working with them and he's still doing their simulator work at the factory. So he is still their driver this year. But yeah, I can imagine this contract recognition is basically how much money are we going to get from McLaren?
100%. Anyway, McLaren can ring up someone in the Middle East and get it paid for, I'm sure.
True.
He's not in my team in F1 Manager 22, which is a new game that came out this past week. I switched him straight to McLaren, and he's halfway through the year started progressing very well. So if that's a telling sign, looking forward to next year. It's going to be a tough gig, though, against Norris, if that does come to fruition. Another driver on McLaren's books is Colton Herta, and according to Adam Cooper here online, that the FIA is looking into whether there are grounds to grant the IndyCar driver a super license. This is amidst speculation that the American could be in line for an AlphaTauri drive next year, which is very bizarre, I think. But again, this is very early days. What if he's not granted the super license? Deal's off. There's this huge push about getting an American driver in the sport, isn't there?
Yeah, which is why I do find it weird that no one seems interested in Andretti joining the grid.
Yeah, I know, right?
It just seems a bit strange, but yeah, I digress.
Well, a team as opposed to a driver is different because the teams want to keep all that money. If another team comes in, do they have to split the money down further?
Yeah.
So that'll be why, in my opinion. Anyway, that's the rumours and gossip and news. Basically, it's all popping off this silly season.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there was one more thing, but just a very brief thing about Spa, that it will be back on the calendar next year.
Yes, but only for 1 year, correct?
So far, yes.
And rumours circulated about Kyle Army, which would be cool. But can we have both, please? Thanks.
Yeah.
Let's ditch somewhere that's lucrative, but for the good of the sport, we can have one round that's not so profiteering. So we should talk about the qualifying and the race, but it's frankly less interesting than the gossip.
Yeah.
But we will do. Just before we jump into that, what did you think to the new look Spa?
Oh, I really liked it. And I think more circuits should be following that example.
It's so good. Just seeing gravel's really nice.
Yeah.
They did go a little Paul Ricard with painted asphalt at times, but it wasn't overbearing, and it was quite okay in my book.
Yeah, and it was also sort of a design as well, whereas Paul Ricard is just the same lines all around.
When I was there for the 24 hours of Spa, it had all the gravel and the curbs, but none of that painting was there, and I can tell you now that Overoos and Radion looked bleak without it.
Yeah.
So a big step forward. And the gravel just adds a charm.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't actually see in the Formula 1 race much people in it.
No.
But in the sport races, it was used, let's say.
Yes, so I hear.
Yeah, there was a pretty nasty incident out the back of the track through Bonchimon in Formula 3. There's a bit of gravel there. I don't think it had a negative or a positive effect in the incident, and everyone's okay, thankfully. But it adds a character to it. But also, if this worked, which it did for Formula 1, then come on, Bahrain.
Yeah.
Put some gravel in. You know?
Well, I mean, how many years has it been at Turn 1 that all the cars run wide at Spa? All of a sudden, you put some gravel down and no one goes anywhere near it. So
but there you go. Track limits solved. Yes, there's very few. I didn't hear a mention of track limits over the weekend. I don't know if you did. There's probably top of Radion is probably one to watch still.
Yeah, I don't think I did.
And there is some asphalt runoff, but in areas where it's appropriate. So obviously Overoos Radion, and then Double Gauche. There's a bit initially, but even after that, there's gravel. So
no, it's how it should be.
Yeah, and it's just amazing that it's sort of reneged back to that. But I think it's predominantly because they were trying to get the MotoGP. Was it there? And so
I think so. Yeah,
happy days. So on to free practice, and Bottas didn't get any running in FP1. Meh. Qualifying happened. According to Bottas, one of the reasons why he didn't get a good run in qualifying was he didn't have much running this weekend, which is kind of fair enough. So he's out in Q1. That's probably the main shock.
Yes, he already had a penalty as well, didn't he?
Right,
so it didn't matter so much for him.
Not too much of a point there. And then looking at the qualifying results, it's very difficult to understand where the heck who did what because of all the grid penalties. But yeah, basically, Bottas, Tsunoda, Magnussen, Latifi and Vettel miss out. Vettel by 0.002 of a second to Mick.
Yeah.
Which, hey, those are the brakes.
Yeah.
Q2, it's all much of a muchness with your Schumachers, your Strolls, your Zhous, Gasly, Ricciardo, all missing out on Q3.
Yeah, Albon was the good one from that.
Incredible. Not only did he make it to Q3, he wasn't even 10th, was he? I think he was 9th quickest. Straight line speed seemed to be the old Williams trick at this venue. And it reminded me a little bit of Giancarlo Fisichella in, was it 2009? But it didn't quite pull off to the same effect.
Yes, the old Force India, wasn't it?
Yeah. Strip all the wings off, send it.
Yeah.
Now, Latifi, unfortunately, comparatively, was abysmal. He was saying, though, that in his one-time lap he messed up and he'd been quicker in all weekend and he just messed up the one time. Well, I'm afraid you're paid to not mess up in that one time.
Mm-hmm.
And it does happen from time to time, but Latifi does seem to happen several times. So no sympathy from me.
No, he has got a new chassis now over the last few races, which he says, judge me now, I have that.
Okay.
So we will.
Yes. I thought it was funny on the Williams YouTube channel, the little PR for the F1 Manager game. There's Albon versus Latifi. They're sat in a room when they're playing it, and Latifi crashes on Latifi's game while he's playing it, and the radio message comes up: beep, my bad.
That's
true to
brilliant.
life. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah,
it's well worth a watch. The other thing from qualifying, Mercedes very slow. Hamilton very upset, being 1.8 seconds off.
It was, yeah, that's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. But I think also, yes, Mercedes are not doing very well, and Alonso out-qualified them, but it's just the gap between Red Bull and Ferrari and the rest of the field, as opposed to Mercedes being particularly terrible in comparison to the rest of the grid. Although, just to clarify as well, Ocon was quicker than both Mercedes as well. But still, this gap between the top two teams is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Max went quickest even though he didn't need to.
Yeah, I mean, it did improve his grid position, but
yeah,
I don't think it would have mattered where he started for this weekend.
I tweeted after qualifying, actually. I'm going to pat myself on the back a bit. The pace of Red Bull and Ferrari is so much that it doesn't really, Leclerc and Max will at least be fighting for the podium. And in the end, I underplayed that. It's been clear all season, though, that those four cars are just half lap ahead of everyone else, minimum, in a race. So, unless there was going to be an accident, it was going to be at least fourth position.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember what the track was now, but there was one track, wasn't there, that Mercedes were particularly competitive at. And apart from that, no one's been anywhere near them.
Yeah, exactly that. And so Sainz then did a good job, I say, to out-qualify Perez.
Yes.
But he had a slipstream from Charles Leclerc, who went out on the first his first trip out of the pits in Q3, accidentally went out on brand new tyres. Ferrari's fit the wrong set, which I believe then potentially he might have had to use at the end of the race when he tried to get fastest lap. So therefore they weren't new, they were mildly used. Not ideal, but no big deal either, according to Charles. So that was qualifying, other than we had all these penalties for, was it engine changes?
Well, yeah. I gave up trying to keep track of it all.
But ultimately, Max started in 14th, because even overnight, Tsunoda decided to start from pit lane with an engine change.
Yes, and then Gasly had to start from the pit lane as well.
Yep.
Right at the start of the race. I don't know why that was. There was some kind of electrical issue, I believe.
So, race starts, and the big thing is everyone gets through clean apart from Hamilton and Alonso. What do you make of that incident? This is at Lecum. Hamilton's going around the outside of Alonso for position number 3 at the time. Yeah,
it was a nice move in theory by Hamilton, but he left no room for Alonso on the inside, which is, to me, what caused the contact. And yes, he is washing out ever so slightly.
He is getting a bit understeer.
On the curb, so he's still not in the middle of the track. But yeah, I see that's totally Lewis's fault, which he later admitted as well. Although he did say it's because he was in my blind spot, but it's like, yeah, but you still knew he was there or thereabouts.
Yeah. That was the reasoning. But he was completely honest and said it was his bad. And I've watched multiple different interviews, and he only once says the blind spot thing. I think it was to Sky, but in other interviews, he just first thing he says it's my fault, and I couldn't agree more. But the car is thrown in the air, and it's wild. Yeah,
I can't believe he continued. I know he didn't in the end, but he was still going at racing speed for another half a lap.
With a little bit of smoke coming out of him and dropping positions, but still pressing on. It could have been a puncture at that point, but then he gets a radio call, stop.
Yes.
Which was like in.
I'm going to say also, how did Alonso continue?
Yes, that's a very good point. 0 damage, seemingly. Unless there was some, out of alignment or something, but as far as we can tell, certainly the front wing wasn't damaged and there was no puncture. And he had a good pace through that race, right?
It was the wheels that came together is what launched Hamilton up, rather than bodywork. But
very fortuitous. I mean, bad that he's in that position where Hamilton squeezed him, but lucky in a sense that he was able to continue on. And he says his PR line, I'm convinced that he's had this waiting and ready, this line. This guy only knows how to drive starting first.
Yes.
Forgetting 2007 when you're in the same car and you were... I know it was a long time ago, but that's an equal comparison when you're in the same vehicle.
Yeah.
I understand that it's heat of the moment frustration. I believe Alonso has kind of backed out of it a little bit in interviews afterwards.
Yeah.
I mean, he says he hit me, what an idiot, and I'm not disagreeing with that in any way.
No. Apparently Lewis had the hump about that part of it rather than the other part. Being called an idiot rather than the other bit.
He said he didn't care, did he? He didn't care. It's probably the best thing to not care either and move on. A lot, Fernando loves his PR games. Looking forward to his book that's supposedly coming out in a month or two.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, there's also this forlorn shot of Hamilton walking around the perimeter of the circuit from behind, which I found eerily bizarre. It was spooky in a way.
Start of a horror film, wasn't
it? Yeah. I'm not sure if he knew he was there or not, but that was very bizarre. It's a long circuit to walk back from. So he had plenty of time to stew on that one. Similar time, is it Latifi uses a gravel? The only time I'm probably going to touch on the gravel. He gives Ocon a very wide berth and spears back on the track and clips Bottas, and Bottas is out stuck in the gravel.
Yeah, originally I'm thinking, well done, Latifi. Ocon's trying to go around the outside of him, and he holds on to it, but he holds on to it by going a bit too fast around the next bit, and then ends up in the gravel on the outside.
Yep.
And then spears back across the track.
Caps off a turgid weekend for Bottas there. Very unfortunate. I don't think he could have done anything else in that scenario.
No.
Just behind that, Stroll also runs a bit wide onto the gravel and comes back on in front of Max. And if you watch the onboard of Max's first lap, it's a bit... it could have been an incident, but it was all fine in the end.
Yeah. Well, he runs wide because Vettel put him out there, which
that's a good point.
Enjoyed.
Sorry. Yes.
Or as I wrote down on my notes, Vettel puts manners on Stroll. It was just, you're not going past here.
0 Fs given because his dad might own the team, but he's out. He's retiring.
Yeah.
He's not even going to another team, so...
Exactly.
Fair play for giving it a fight. Then there's a safety car and Leclerc has to pit early because allegedly Max Verstappen's tear-off is actually inside his brake duct because they're running quite close in the other stages. Don't think it would have mattered anyway. I think Max would have got him. I think Max had quite a tentative first lap, which is clever. And then from that point in the race, it's just each lap he does an overtake, basically, with DRS or under brakes. It's just the pace differential is ginormous.
Yeah, he's learnt over the years, hasn't he? Especially at a track like Spa, there's no need to go all out on the first lap or two because you're going to make the places up each lap anyway.
Especially with such a quick vehicle.
Yeah.
I'm not taking it away from Max. It's a team effort, and that car's clearly very quick in a straight line. It's only the Ferrari and the other Red Bull he has to worry about in terms of latent pace, right?
Yeah.
So Sainz is leading, but everybody then, relatively early to the race, Max is only a handful of seconds behind, and it has a sense of inevitability about it.
Yeah, normally a safety car, you just think, oh, this is going to liven things up, but it kind of killed the race.
Yeah, because Max is close to the other cars. Everybody's a bit not bunched together, so there's less chance of an incident. So he can just pick them off one by one.
Although Sainz did his best to liven up the restart.
Oh, I forgot about that. He completely missed the corner, didn't he?
Yeah, he ran very deep into the bus stop because no one can overtake till the start-finish line, I believe. I know it used to be the first safety car line, all that stuff, but it's the start-finish line now. So yeah, he ended up getting a much better getaway from that.
It completely balked Perez. Nothing Perez could do about that, I don't think.
Oh no. But yeah, at least made it. Like, he got away for a little bit, but didn't last very long.
No, so ultimately Sainz pits while in the lead, and Max stays out on the soft tyre for longer, because not only is it quicker, it's seemingly very good at its tyres, the Red Bull, at this track, and the Sainz comes back out in the lead ahead of Perez, but Perez lets Max by relatively soon. At some point in the shuffle, I might have got the order slightly wrong there, but Max is let by Perez, but not very easily for a while. It thought, is Perez going to fight this for a lap? Max puts in a radio message and things soon switch around. And then he overtakes Sainz on track.
It was lap 12 that Max got in the lead. I know that was when Sainz pitted, but it's still 12 laps to go from 14th to first.
Yeah, and then he's back down again, and then he's ahead again. And then Perez catches up to Sainz as well, and it's like a sitting duck scenario. So he's up to second. And then we're sort of watching the midfield, and there's a lot going on. I just didn't care for it because it's all straightforward DRS stuff. I don't know what you felt about it. I
mean, every overtake, it was just like, that's the same as I just saw last lap, but with two different cars. And there's no challenge to it. There was one overtake, the second lap after the safety car, where Albon overtook Ricciardo, which was without DRS because it hadn't been enabled at that point.
Props for Alex.
Yeah, I know he's got the fast car, but it was still it shows that you can overtake at Spa without the DRS. So, should we have it there?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, so not every circuit could necessarily have DRS. I like that.
Oh, even if they have it where they have it on the start-finish straight, don't they?
Yeah, maybe keep it there, but not...
Yeah, not down that straight.
Apparently Zandvoort next race, they're going to have it on the banking.
Yeah, they were going to do that before, wasn't they? And then they changed their mind last year.
I mean, I'm all for the risk, but it smells like disaster.
Yeah.
We'll say that, and they'll get there, and it'll be no problem at all. So, then there's some other things. Stroll tries to make a move. You have an opinion on that?
Oh, yeah. When he gets a good run on Ricciardo coming out of the source. And then, for me anyway, stupidly decides to take the Mark Webber route, as I call it, into Eau Rouge, around the outside. And unless you're solidly alongside the car at that point, there's no point trying it. Especially because he's then compromised himself on the run-up to Le Com, so he couldn't get past at all. And then I think it was several laps before he even got back into a chance to attack again. I just thought it was a bit naive.
Yeah, it's petulance. Arthur Leclerc in Formula 3, coming up the rookie ranks, so to speak, he did a great move where he had a run, but he just timed it perfectly where there was still a car width up the hill. Mm-hmm. And then he got the slipstream and the DRS was it down the straight. And Stroll needs to watch Formula 3 more often, was my takeaway. Yeah, it was just silly.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing showing half a nose there? You've got to be fully committed.
Mm-hmm.
And then through the race, everyone's just sort of stuck behind Albon, basically, which is really good driving from Alex. A clever setup to be quick down the straight, quick enough to hold off DRS. I like to see that.
Yeah, that was the only sort of thing of interest, wasn't it? Is Albon going to get overtaken?
Yeah, I mean, he was steadily falling through the strategy in the pit stops. He fell back a bit, which is a bit unfortunate. He was definitely running higher up, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So at one point, it's earned a great result and a great drive, and they were very happy with it, rightly. But it almost felt like it could have been a bit more. Am I being too?
I mean, where did he actually start? And then he started 6th.
Yeah.
So he's dropped 4 places.
He was running comfortably in 6th for a bit. We had a train behind him, and then after the pit stop shuffle, all of a sudden he's falling back a bit.
But 2 of those places is Max and Charles, so,
True, that's 8th.
That's always going to happen. So really they've lost 2 positions.
Yeah, Ocon was one of them, wasn't it?
Oh yes, I forgot Ocon was back there as well. So yeah, and he definitely has a faster car than them. So yeah.
So when you look at it, I'm wrong. We'll move on.
Well,
the other thing we should mention is there's this crazy move where there's Ocon, Gasly and Vettel down the straight. Yes. Do you have an opinion on that? Because it was DRS assisted, but it's still quite nice, I thought.
Vettel, wasn't it? In the middle.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was nice, but it was, it's just the same DRS issues. It just looked nice to see 3 abreast.
Yeah, so Vettel gets Gasly at La Source, which is cool and all, but it's going to compromise your run into the DRS area.
Yeah.
So Gasly gets by on the straight, but then Ocon's on the left, gets by both of them. But what I liked about it was Ocon gets past Gasly under the braking area. It's not in the straight. And then what I also liked is, didn't Vettel send it back down the inside a couple of corners later in a move where...
Oh, yes, he did, didn't he?
Yeah, and that was not DRS assisted or anything. And it was like, so he clearly doesn't care at the minute. He's just, bam, I'm going to outbrake it. It's like, so it is possible. I love that.
Yeah.
Too many comparisons to the 2000 move of Häkkinen, Zonta and Schumacher, though. It's not the same.
No, because that was a back marker.
Yeah, and no DRS.
Both lapping. Yeah. But no, that was probably the only interesting thing at that point.
Yeah, it was.
I kept thinking a safety car now would liven things up.
Well.
I did write Latifi, you're up, but it didn't happen.
No. So that's basically the race. Verstappen won it, and we sound quite down on it and resigned, but it was a peerless drive. And congratulations.
Yeah, fully deserved by Max.
Yeah.
It's just a bit boring to watch when someone's that dominant, but...
Yeah, and let's be clear as well. The car's amazing, clearly, but he smashed Perez. Mm-hmm. If you think about it, he started, 13 positions behind him on the grid.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I know there was team orders probably towards the end, but still, to even get in that position is very impressive.
Exactly. Yeah, team orders can only come into effect when you're behind him.
Yeah.
And yeah, he got there very, very quickly.
And allegedly, they've denied this whole rumor of a lighter chassis or something, and suppose they have to run a higher ride height because of the compression at Eau Rouge Radeon. And Red Bull still gets a lot of downforce, even though it's running a bit higher.
Yeah, supposedly the next race might see it close up a bit because of that.
We live in hope.
Exactly. Oh, one other thing I did like from the weekend was Mercedes' numbers.
Yes. Was that a tribute for something?
It was to mark, I think, 55 years of AMG existing within Mercedes.
There was a big white background in a circle, wasn't it?
Yes, it was reminiscent of the Red Pig Mercedes. But it was just really nice to see because it was so clear what the number of the car was.
Yeah, true. You knew exactly who was who.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe they keep it.
I'd love them to.
But maybe not. They could probably make a load of die-cast models and make a load of money, though. The one-time use.
Oh, yeah.
Get it in now. Semi-tempted, to be honest. Mind you, it didn't win, so... On to, if you're finished with Formula 1.
Yep.
So we said we're going to be quicker there, and it's been 45 minutes, I think. British touring cars from Thruxton. 3 races as per usual. And we start with Snetterton. Because I don't know if you saw in the coverage, Nick, that they showed a new angle of the Collard versus Ingram incident.
Yes, I did see that. I'm trying to remember that.
Looked like to me Ingram turned in.
Yes, and it wasn't even a new angle. They did show this angle last time round.
Oh, did they? I didn't spot that. Wasn't during the race, was it? Was it later on?
I think it was actually just after the race. They quickly showed a replay of it, but only very quickly. Because at the time I remember saying there was a gap there.
You did?
And I thought it was worth going for, and then I sort of backtracked on that. Whereas looking at this, yeah, it does feel a bit hard done by on Collard for that one.
Yeah, I understand why the Collard camp would try and appeal the decision, which was overruled. But as he's gone for the dive, if Ingram turns in at that point without Collard there, he's cutting across the grass on the inside.
Yeah.
So it's clever. It's clever. If those are the rules, then fair play. So anyway, there's a whole separate podcast about that, but now with the extra context, just thought I should clear that up. So just going into the weekend, Cook has 9 Thruxton wins. Tom Oliphant joins hard for a round, although now we know there was not much point in that.
Yes, Tony Gotham, as I mistakenly put in our chat.
Good old autocomplete.
Yes, Tony Gillum getting in Tom Oliphant to replace. I still can never remember his name. It's Will Powell, isn't it? I always remember it's Powell, and I always think. But yeah,
it was racing his BMW overalls. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, was he? No, I didn't see that at all.
It was so last minute. He didn't have any actual branded up stuff, so he was just there in last year's BMW livery. It's quite
good to see him back though. He was never going to do particularly well with no time in the car, etc. But it was good to see him.
So a couple of things came out of the qualifying session on the Saturday. Half an hour as per usual. Collard had steering rack failure in free practice, which knocked his confidence a bit. Because apparently, even though it wasn't at full speed, it was towards Church Corner. Then, what I didn't realise is on medical grounds, he doesn't use the hybrid button like everybody else. He has a paddle.
All right.
Because after a karting incident when he was younger, he doesn't have the range of movement needed in his wrist. So from either this or last round onwards, he now has a paddle, and that's one of the reasons why he's been better performance apparently, because he hasn't been able to use the hybrid properly.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I thought so. I'd like to see an image of that. And then also, I didn't realise that Paul Ridgway, or at least now is his engineer, who he used to do Adam Morgan in the Wix days, and also works for the Lincoln Co. WTCR team, who is on an indefinite hiatus because of tyre rules, which we mentioned before. And he's an established engineer, so that's a good team behind him. He's definitely stepped up in recent rounds, so...
Yes, totally.
A couple of reasons there. And I should also notice that you can rewatch qualifying again on the ITV BTC website if you go to the news section. There's a post there, but you can't watch the races online at the minute, which is a very... normally they're much quicker than this. Again, I just want to clarify, we knock the coverage in some form or another, or uploads every other week. It's free-to-air coverage, sometimes in HD, depending on your subscription package as well, and on the internet, for free. So that's amazing. So I just want to clarify, I think it's brilliant. It's just they haven't uploaded the races, And the YouTube channel continues to be lackadaisical in its approach. So, on to qualifying itself. We had Dan Camish snatching pole position at the last gasp attempt. So what happened in the session is everyone went out, set a time early on, and then no one could beat them. There was actually a few people going off the track. I wonder if it got dirty. I wonder if the temperature changed. But then Dan Camish did manage to snatch pole position. He was in second right at the end by... Whoa, what's that? A very small margin. 1700ths?
1700ths.
Yeah.
And he was convinced to go back out by his engineer. As Camish didn't want to. He felt he couldn't improve.
Now, I don't think this was a new lap qualifying record. Interesting. But again, it could be dirt and muck because Josh Cook, for example, ran wide at the first corner, spewed a load of gravel, and then other people went off there. I think Sutton did as well, and Aaron Taylor-Smith had 2 wheels on the grass. So that spewed a load of muck onto the track. The main thing I thought was Turkington struggled all session. He went off twice across the Campbell-Cobb-Seagrave section. Once he came across Nick Hamilton, but it almost looks like he was running wide anyway, and Hamilton happened to be there offline. And then the second time later on in the session, he just went off on his own. So that
was explained briefly during the race, where they said that in qualifying he had an overheating engine, which was actually spilling fluid onto his tyres.
Yes, that's right. Never ideal. So
no.
In hindsight, in retrospect, then 15th on the grid, it's okay considering. But the other championship contender, Ingram, was down in 13th. And I was thinking, maybe hybrid does have a good effect in qualifying here. But if you're saying there's the engine issue, I can't account for Ingram. But
no, well, Ingram apparently just had a poor setup, is what he put it down to.
Yeah.
But the other thing that was interesting to do with that is that, yes, Turkington, for instance, was best part of 9/10 off of pole. But he was still only 2/10 off of 6th.
Right, there was a big gap from 6 upwards, basically.
Yeah, and as well as Turkington being close to that, there was also Collard, Plato had an identical time. Collard set his time first, so he's ahead, and Rory Butcher was 1,000th behind that. So the two Toyotas separated by 1,000th.
Wow, that's 3 positions on the grid by 1,000. So I guess Ricky Collard gets 10th because he said it first.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually a reasonably strong qualifying from Plato. Things go south from here, which we'll cover.
Yes.
Any stars of qualifying for you?
Originally, I had Jake Hill because I thought, he's done really well without the hybrid. But then, as it turns out, there was other reasons for the other cars being further down.
Right.
So for me, just the 2 Vauxhalls, but 6th and 7th.
Yeah, Hand in 6th and Crease in 7th. I noticed on a pre-race interview, Crease was saying, when me and Josh Cook were teammates, he taught me everything I know about this track. And I was like, And if you look, in qualifying, he does do the Josh Cook line through Goodwood, which we should have touched upon, because it seems to be only Crease and Cook that use it, which is still weird. Maybe Plato did, I didn't see it, but I don't know.
Yes,
repeat that again.
You need your brave pills for that.
You do, but Crease was doing it. Crease it! Shedden's okay in 5th, Sutton's in 4th, Cook in 2nd. I could say Ingram far down. I think all the Hyundais kind of struggled through the most of the weekend. I must say here, though, top Hyundai was Tom Chilton in 9th.
Yeah.
Which is a good qualifying result.
Yeah, comfortably as well, wasn't he? Ingram's the nearest one, and then Lloyd and Butel very close together, actually.
Lloyd, a terrible result there in 20th, I have to say. This is on the weekend. He secured sponsorship from Bristol Street Motors for the rest of the season. So a new livery on him and Butel's car, which is wonderful news. Unfortunate that the performance wasn't very good this weekend.
Yes, but I mean, will this be his first full season, or did he actually finish the Vauxhall season? I can't remember. But he's always has budget issues, is what I'm getting at. He's always having to step down from drives and things, so I'm really pleased for him to be able to see this one out.
I think he did the full Vauxhall one, didn't he? Was that last year with Plato?
Yes.
I think he did. So this will be his second full year.
I think so.
Yeah. You're right, before that is Eurotech in the Hondas, on and off.
Yeah, there was one team, I can't even remember, where he signed for them and then never got to race, did he? I don't think.
Oh, I think you might be right there. I can't remember who that was now.
No, I can't, but...
Anyway, we enjoy his YouTube channel. I think he's based nearish to me, somewhere in West Yorkshire as well, so that gives me extra pride. But anyway, We should probably move on from qualifying.
Near his home circuit of Croft.
Near his home circuit of Croft.
So, let's not go there.
No, let's not go there. So
one other thing from qualifying was George Gamble, 17th.
Oh, of course. How can I forget? Pretty average, that.
Yeah, it was. But then the BMWs, with the exception of Jake Hill, they were all together on the grid, 14th, 15th, 16th and 17th.
Yep. Yeah, it's not like Adam Morgan smashed him or anything. He was ahead of him, but it's Jake Hill is the stand-up performer there in that particular vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, to be fair, we were saying the last 2 rounds, or I was saying maybe, this BMW is too dominant. Not the case here.
No. Thruxton is a front-wheel drive circuit, it appears, but...
Yeah. The other thing is Rick Parfitt nearly didn't race because he qualified, then went to Carfest to play with his band on the Saturday night, then came back on the Sunday. Brilliant. So, then we should say that... Well, shall we start with Gamble Watch for race 1?
Well, yes. He got a bit more TV time than he expected at the beginning because he just stopped on the outlap, didn't he?
Yeah.
Well, the formation lap.
Now, this is the second time it's happened, at least, this year.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure what the issue was. I didn't see anywhere.
No, I don't.
But I believe he got back in the race, but
he did.
Not really.
From the pit lane and after it had started, I think.
Yeah.
Not ideal. So after the Gamble Watch happens, the race starts, apart from Jason Plato, who doesn't start. And that wrecks his weekend, in my opinion. He has a very slow off the start, and then he's down back in the pack. But anyway, the main action is right up the front, where there's a very aggressive Josh Cook, in my opinion.
Yes. Fired up.
Yeah.
Didn't really work out for him.
So I think the context is, we said his championship's over, but here we come to Thruxton. He's the king of Thruxton, and he's got 9 wins already, as we've already said, so he's qualified in second, he's got to go for the win. Aggressive. Send it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, he does have to be, but it just didn't work out.
Yeah, exactly. So Hill jumps him actually off the line, so he's already down to third. There, he tries to go around the outside of Hill into Campbell, but then Sutton also goes down the inside, so it's 3 wide.
Yeah.
Cook gets a bit of a wiggle on because there's contact between the 3 of them. Then coming to Cobb, he dives down the inside of Sutton, quite robustly, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They then come on to Seagrave, and how would you read it? But ultimately, there's contact, and Cook goes off onto the grass and drops all the way down.
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts on the first bit when he goes around the outside of Hill.
Yeah.
And I think Cook then gets triggered because he's then pushed out by Hill.
Yes.
Because Hill is pushed by Sutton.
Mm.
And I don't think Cook realised that Sutton was there. And then he then dived for the inside for the next one, pushed Sutton out wide. And as they go through Seagrave, to me, Cook just turns in on him.
I agree.
Yes, Sutton could have backed out, but at the same time, why should you if you're there?
Nah.
For me, Cook, if he'd have just left a bit more room, he would have had much more exit speed anyway. So I think it was just a case of, let's say he was triggered from that first corner, or first real corner.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's twice in this podcast. I think we're agreeing too much in this podcast. I think it's outrageous. Sutton, no. To me, you come out of Cobb, you run wide, then you have to go left a bit to get the angle right for Seagrave, and Cook turns in a bit too early, and Sutton's got nowhere to go. He holds it by flooring the throttle, but he's on the grass and he's way down the field. Doesn't really recover all too well at that point.
He doesn't, but he could also have retired. So
exactly. I thought, that was quite a big hit. Is his suspension broken? But it luckily wasn't. Maybe it was in the door. And Shedden jumps everybody. Happy days for Gordon. So then we go further down the lap. And
and then you see Sutton sliding sideways around. Is it Noble as well? At that point, I thought his car was knackered.
Who's he alongside at that point?
Shedden.
Ah, yes, that's right. Shedden goes around the outside of him, does he?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, fair enough. I made it, simplified it a bit that Shedden just gets to run, but he does hang on around the outside of Sutton, which is no mean feat.
Mm-hmm.
So we get to Church, and Tom Chilton nearly rolls it. How did that car not tip on its roof? He slews off the track at high speed, unabated speed, into the grass, and oh my word, it's so high speed sideways on the grass.
I did feel really sorry for Chilton there, not just because of what happened, but Rowbottom was out of shape in front of him.
Yeah.
And I think they may have come together, Rowbottom was out of shape on his own, I should say.
Yes.
And Chilton's then has to check up slightly, and I don't know if he tapped Rowbottom or not, but that totally unsettled his car at the wrong moment, and that's why he veered off.
To me, it looks like when he checks up, Butcher taps him from behind.
Oh yes, that could well be as well.
So he couldn't do anything in that scenario because, I mean, we'll come to an incident later on in race 3 where a similar thing-ish happens, I think. But yeah, you're right. But Rowbottom loses it. Catches it.
Yeah.
And Chilton has got nowhere to go, and there's just a what would you call it? A concertina effect. And he's fired off, but it is dangerous and sketchy.
Oh yeah, it's a definite code brown.
And obviously he's on the grass and he has to come in the pits. He's basically last. He carries on though, but I mean, ultimately, again, that's ruined his weekend. Like I'm saying, Plato slow start puts him back in the pack. This is another one.
Yeah.
But that's not the end of the action. As we come into club. This is mad. So it's Collard looks to get shuffled out, doesn't he? Runs wide and smacks into the side of Hand. And they both Tokyo drift it. Rearward entry, like Formula Drift into the club chicane. Which is well saved, but then everybody cuts across the track and gains positions.
Yeah.
Insert rant that you've pre-booked.
Yes. It was another thing from Rowbottom, actually, in that he's the reason that Collard goes into Ash Hand.
Oh, you're right. Yes, I forgot that. Yep.
Once again, not deliberately, but he's on the inside.
Yep.
And that a little bit of contact with Collard, which then pushes him out into Ash Hand. They then both floor it around what I would call the outside of the chicane and rejoin the track at a much higher speed than the cars that are already on the track.
Which is dangerous.
Yeah, it's very dangerous, I think. But Ash Hand, for instance, when he goes into that corner, depending where he is in relation to Collard, he went in either 7th or 8th position, and he came out in 5th.
I mean, either way, whichever position, at the very least, he's overtaken, is it Butcher and Crease?
Yeah, he's overtaken his teammate.
And nearly got Hill.
Yeah, I know, and had a run on Hill. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
And my first thought when I saw that is, all right, pretty naughty, but he's going to have to give those places back. And it was never, ever brought up in the commentary or the stewards or anything.
It's outrageous. How many times have we had this conversation about Thruxton?
Many times.
It's every round, isn't it? Someone does something.
Yeah.
The crazy thing here is it's so... I get you've been hit off, but full speed, no lift. Clearly overtaking cars. Now, what was slightly confusing first time through is it's 2 Astras and 2 Toyotas.
Yes.
There is also contact, but it turns out it's between Crease and Collard.
Yeah.
So Collard's come back on at full speed. Maybe Crease doesn't expect a car to be going that much speed difference and closes down to the left of the circuit. There's contact between him and Collard. Collard spears across and nearly takes out Butcher. But I don't blame Creasy for it because...
Oh, no.
Why would you expect someone to come so much quicker out of the chicane? Well, because they didn't take the chicane.
Yeah.
And
I still don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, it reminded me of 2016 a little bit where, was it Matt Neal had a puncher and then Cook and Shedden had an accident. And Shedden ended up spearing down the track and ended up slamming into the wall way past the finish line. And the way Collard's car was moving, I thought, oh, it's coming towards the wall here. But he did hold it. But and then he had another moment coming out of Allard where he pulled across him. Was it Rowbottom?
Yes. Yeah, it was.
I thought that was dodgy as well. No, but I'm with you. I don't know what the answer is. But I'll tell you what the answer is. You've got to give them penalties or warnings or something.
Yeah, I just think there must be some way to discourage them from even doing it. But you can't really put gravel there.
No, I know.
Because of where it is. But because originally I was thinking maybe like a thin strip of gravel or something just to do something, or like a Formula 1 style, you have to rejoin around this, etc. But there's just not enough room there to do anything safely, I don't think.
No, there isn't. I agree. I'm fine with the layout. You just got to be harsh with it. Like, maybe they can't say, we can't reverse the position. Still give Ashand a penalty. I mean, it's ridiculous. It is actually... He had a great drive. Really good to see him qualifying well. Put in a really solid race performance. But for it to not even be noted, I've got a note down here that on the BTCC.net website that Ollie Jackson in race 2 received a verbal warning for having retained position after shortcutting the circuit. Well, blow me down. Why doesn't Ash Hand even have that?
Yeah.
How talk about inconsistent? It's actually it's unacceptable. I'm riled up.
Yeah. No, I was watching the whole rest of the race, just angry about it.
Yeah. Right.
Because, let's say, if he's done it, that's fair enough. But yeah, penalise him somehow. But it's the fact that no one even seemed to realise what had happened. None of the commentary, none of the broadcast team, none of the stewards. Everyone just said, what a great result for Ashan, which it was. But
yeah,
even there's an article on the BTCC website about Power Max Racing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mention it in the slightest, just says...
Of course it doesn't.
Did really well. He was, a career best of 5th. Both drivers forced to take evasive action, but no mention of him making up all this time.
No, it's ridiculous. And Collard did the same thing, but obviously had his moment and he spin and fell back. So there's no punishment. But it should at least be a warning, a verbal warning, if they were giving those out for rejoining in such a fashion.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't even lose places. He gained 2 minimum. So
you can't.
Yeah.
It's madness. The rest of the race, Gamble retires again.
Yes. I'm not sure what happened there.
Broken suspension. We didn't see, but one of the Infinities had a suspension failure at that track when they first raced there. I'm wondering if you clip a curb too much in a rear-wheel drive car and it's a bit fragile. I don't know.
Could be.
Pure speculation. Jade Edwards tries around the outside of Church. I mean, credit where it's due. That's gutsy.
I did like her quote afterwards. I don't know if you saw it.
No.
Because there was an accident in a sport race, quite a big accident, which I hope everyone was okay. There was a lot of just talking going on in between the races because there was no sport races. But yes, Jade was interviewed about it and she said, it did make me laugh. They say you need balls to drive this circuit. Well, mine are just higher up. But yeah, no, it was very gutsy from her. And to be honest, I think it was one of her best races. Not one of her best results, but one of her best
she got
races.
shuffled down. But I had down here as well that Jackson overtook Edwards off the track at the chicane, but he didn't even receive a warning for this. And wasn't it because Buttel was slowing away or something?
Yes, that was later on, a few laps later. But yeah, same thing. He cut the middle of the chicane rather than going around the outside.
Right.
But yeah, he still did that to gain a place and doesn't give it back.
Yeah, don't give it back. That's it. And then Edwards gets the quick fit banner on the front of her car, and she presses on. Where I'm thinking, should you pit? But she has to slow down. But ultimately, she does finish the race, and I don't think they had to change the engine. So okay.
No, she said the advertising hoarding was high enough up that the water pressure wasn't being affected. She then got an oil pressure warning, and the team told her to back off while they checked it. And then it was discovered that it wasn't going to be an issue, so she got back on it. But by this point, she'd lost all the places.
Yeah. So unfortunate, but all right. Fair play for cracking on.
Yeah, Ashan did get a black and white flag for track limits later on in the race, but I don't think it was for the whole chicane issue.
Basically, track limits is measured at on the inside of Church. Interestingly, for the first time, I believe.
Yeah.
And so
that's the only thing I saw.
Mm-hmm. So end of race 1. Anyway, after all that shenanigans, Jam Camish dominates. Another victory for him in the Napa Ford, and his first pole position, wasn't it, as well? Shedden's in 2nd, Sutton in 3rd, Hale in 4th, Hand in 5th, shouldn't have been, Butcher in 6th, Robot in 7th, Crease in 8th, Ingram 9th, and Turkington up to 10th points. So then, on to race 2, that's the grid. Off the start line, Sutton gets ahead of Shedden, so Camish gets the lead, but Sutton, crucially, is up to 2nd off the start. Yeah. Butcher tries on Hill, but fails. On the first lap, Plato loses more positions, so he's had a slow start in the first one, and then in this one he's down to 18th by the end of the first lap, or the opening salvo, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He tries to force Collard off, but Collard has none of it, and Plato gets sideways.
Yeah, it was similar to the Cook and Sutton one earlier, but much more aggressive between both of them.
Yeah, I mean, Plato pushed him wide, but Collard's just rightfully not backing down. And I think Collard was well within his rights to stay there.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
And so you reap what you sow, in my opinion, on that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was definitely all Jason's fault on that one.
Oh, 100%. I don't know what's going on there. Maybe a bit of frustration. Not sure.
Yeah.
So then lap 2, and Sutton closes right in on Dan Camish, but they don't switch positions because Shedden's close behind, in theory. I do think there was a window, but it didn't happen at this point.
Yeah.
A couple of laps later, Sutton actually skips the chicane. He just bounces all over the place, doesn't he, and loses a lot of momentum.
He does, yeah. He cuts the inside of the second part of the chicane, which I don't have as much of a problem was because to do that you will lose time. You don't lose places as such, but it's not, you don't gain from it, if that makes any sense.
Soon after that, we got Patterson and Buttel crashing. Can you recall that one?
Yeah. Well, at that point, that's where I thought Buttel should have done what Sutton did and cut that part of the chicane.
Right.
But he didn't. He tried to turn back in and then just spun Patterson round.
Unfortunate for the Infiniti driver there.
Mm-hmm.
Lap 7, Hand retires this one. Engine failure in the end.
Yeah.
Not ideal. There's a nice battle between Cook, Jelly and Creasy. Creasy!
Yes.
But then lap 8, we've got the Collard versus Ollie Jackson. Shenanigans.
Yeah. Well, Ricky Collard gets up on the curb at turn 1 ever so slightly, and that just unsettles the car and gets him sideways. Yeah, I'm not actually sure what happened with that bit. I saw that Aaron Taylor-Smith was shedding bits of his car in front, and I think it was Ollie Jackson was sort of pushed out wide a little bit.
I think so. It looked like the part had maybe come from someone else, but it looked, it was Aaron Taylor-Smith's part. You know, a bit of the hard car was falling off for some reason.
Yeah, just happened to be the exact time that Collard was getting sideways on the curb.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, did look weird, didn't it? But when you see the replay, like, okay.
And then Collard, Plato, and Jade Edwards all having a bit of fun as well.
Oh yeah, so then Ollie Jackson's involved in a bit of shenanigans. I've used that word twice, I think, because Jason Plato just punts him off. So second incident for Plato this race that's a bit suspect, I think. And Jackson goes flat over the grass. Maybe this is where he gets his warning fall. And then
it was,
ultimately Collard gets both of them, I think.
Yeah, for me on that one, Jackson locked up going into the corner. So he ran wide. Plato then hits him anyway. But for me, Jackson's already made the mistake. Rejoin's still ahead. Yeah, he then got a verbal warning for keeping the place, although he didn't keep it for very long, I don't think.
So we're monitoring Campbell, Cobb and Seagrave, but not the final screen. Idea. Anyway, eventually Sutton is let by Camish in a very sporting manoeuvre to help with the championship title.
Yes, there was one other very brief thing. I thought that Jelly held up Turkington for about 3 laps before he let him through, and I did think that was a bit... I don't know if that's the team or Jelly deciding that, but that could have cost Colin the chance to fight for a few more places.
True. He definitely indicated and pulled across though when it did happen, which is a move that happens later on as well. So Sutton wins it. He was very quick. Both Napa Fords were excellent. So Ford won 2. Sutton ahead of Camish. Shedden another podium in 3rd. Jake Hill another strong position in 4th. Butcher 5th. Ingram 6th. Getting some championship points still, but falling back from Sutton here at this point. Rowbottom 7th. Cook 8th. So he's made some progress from the first race mess. Crease down to 9th. I thought Crease was very quick in qualifying. Very quick pace in the race, but too timid and tentative at times. Turkington up to 10th, so again losing out some points to Sutton there, but still getting something back. Ash Sutton then does the draw. I mean, it's legit. I've got no problem with it. I just don't think that the drivers should do it.
I agree with that.
At the very, get Paul O'Neill. He's around. He can do it.
Yeah, they always have guest people come and do it as well. But if there's no guest, the winning driver does it. It just seems a bit odd.
Yeah, that's not.
And George Gamble finished 19th in that race as well.
Stephen Jelly, is it P11 is drawn out? So Jelly's on pole position, which another thing where there's a sense of inevitability about it. You sort of think, well, Turkington's going to be passed soon.
Yeah.
Before the race starts, though, Ada Moffat apparently has an exhaust come loose. I'm not sure he actually entered it in the end.
I didn't see that. No.
And Nick Hamilton, at first it looks like he's completely missed his grid box, but he's trying to enter the pit lane. So clearly an issue there. It's not as embarrassing as Ollie Jackson at Donington earlier on in the year, which still makes me laugh. So at the start, it's this time the turn of not Plato to get a poor start, but Creasy.
Yeah, terrible.
The BMWs rightly disappear. But Cook is on the attack, and he has to be, because he knows the BMWs are not strong in the first 2 laps. This is his chance to win. He's a bit desperate, but he gets 2 amazing moves done. The first is his signature move, the Cook at Goodwood. 2 wheels over the grass, gets the run down into Church. You think he's going to do that the next lap on Jelly, but he doesn't. He dive bombs him into the final few corners. And then it's goodbye, see you later. Jelly eventually does the indicator trick again, and Turkington's through. into second. You're sort of thinking, well, Jelly's ahead, but for how long?
Yeah.
I think in this race, Butcher skips the chicane and overtakes Ingram, but it's awkward because Ingram and Rowbottom tangle slightly, so that slows them up. But Butcher still gets ahead because of the chicane cut.
Yeah, again.
And then we need to go to Gamble Watch because he's attacked. Plato just dive bombs into the chicane by looks things, smashes him so hard it breaks Gamble's right rear suspension. Plato gets a puncture. Gamble has to retire. Plato does go back out but retires later on.
Yeah, no, I totally missed this. I don't know what I was doing at that point. I saw Plato go in the pits with damage. But,
yeah, you've got to watch a replay of... it's the replay of Cook passing Jelly for the lead, and you can see it in the background.
See, I completely
Plato
missed
just
it.
slightly misses the turning point, thwacks Gamble, and they both go off. Plato cuts the chicane but gets a punch, and Gamble, it looks like he just spins and rejoins, but as he rejoins, his right rear suspension's like completely smashed. So it's testament to how heavy the hit was,
Yeah.
I think. No warnings or nothing for that one, but it does look suspect. So then we've got also Sam Osborne packed up at Campbell Cobb and Seagrave. I was like, straight away, safety car, but
no, especially as that was exactly where Ollie Jackson drove straight across.
That's my point. And Turkington did it twice in qualifying. If you lock up there, you go straight across, and there's a Ford. I know the day was delayed and stuff, but come on.
It's completely broadside in the way it should have been moved.
Should have been moved. There's areas and barriers and parts to push that to the side there. There's lots of good battles. We're watching Aaron Taylor-Smith on board and Hands in front of him pushing through.
Yeah, Hand was doing brilliantly in this race.
Yeah, he was on point. Then we have a bit 7 laps in where Morgan pushes Patel into Moffat and gets them both. Fantastic.
Yeah.
bit of skittles there. 10-pin bowling. Nothing again for that one. I mean, unfortunately, Moffat ends up into the weeds and is severely handicapped as a result of that. Rowbottom does an amazing move around the outside of Ingram. Off camera as well, what we didn't see was Sutton somehow got past Ingram. But I think it was when there was this Rowbottom Ingram Butcher thing at the chicane and Sutton got the run, which is important for the championship. And then Rowbottom getting past him again is important for the championship. He does this lovely move. It's his signature move.
Yeah.
He first did it last year. Did we call it doing a robot? No, we definitely shouldn't. So then Sutton's trying to get past Butcher, but Butcher's having none of it, which is good. And towards the end of the race, we've got Ashan smashing into Morgan at Church. But what did you make of that move?
To me, Morgan had some kind of, maybe not issue, but he led off or was unsettled. He slowed down slightly. And to me, he gets hit by Ashan, yes, but I didn't see it as being Ash's fault necessarily. I think
clearly there's heavy damage and Morgan's off the track, spun off, and Hand's got damage to the front. It's a big hit. But from the onboard of someone, I can't remember who it was, looking back, Morgan misses the apex and slows down. It looks like to me Ash Hand is sideways trying to stop and just hits him. So I don't actually lay the blame with Hand there. I know it's front to rear contact.
Yeah,
but
I'm the same.
Morgan's really slow, right in the middle of the quickest corner in the UK.
Yeah, there's not much you can do, I don't think, about that.
No. So anyway, Cook storms it. He wins his 10th win at Thruxton, but too late for his title. But there we go. Turkey to second, good points and good recovery. Jelly third in the BMW. Then we've got Butcher in fourth, solid, but should have been on the podium. Sutton in fifth, another good recovery from 11th on the grid. Robot in sixth, Ingram 7th, Crusade in 8th, another strong performance. Shedden 9th, not too much of a fight back in this one. Camish 10th, not too much of a fight back in this one. Lloyd 11th, so at least something from the weekend.
Yeah.
And Jake Hill 12th because he ran wide on the first lap.
He
I forgot to mention.
Did a bit of rallycross, which didn't help him out.
Yeah. We should also say that Rowbottom's fastest lap in the first race is the fastest lap of the 2022 season, thanks to Inside BTCC.
Interesting
stat. Other tracks will not be as quick as that. Unfortunately, in the sport races, we had two terrible incidents. So in the Quaife Mini Challenge Trophy, car 98, Jonathan Sargent, he hits side on in between Goodwood and Church High Speed. There's a big group of like five or six cars, and he spears out. No one to blame, I don't think. And it's a heavy side on impact, a red flag, so we hope he's okay.
I didn't actually see this particular incident, but yeah, I hope he's all okay.
It's, I'm going to use the expression again, but unabated speed side on into the driver's door.
It just
and it comes to a hard
Sounds
stop.
so scary.
It's awful. And Colin White and Mike Brown are severely injured. We hope they're on the mend. They had an accident in the Ginetta GT4s. Coming out of church, one of them is on the grass, slews across, the other one can't avoid it, ends up rolling, and there's also an impact in the driver's side of one of the Ginettas. So we don't want to see that. There was a long pause while they tried to get the drivers out of the vehicles there. Again, you don't want to see that. That championship did race later again.
Yes, they did.
Later on in the day again. I don't think there's necessarily anything you can necessarily change with the track, other than mini incident. You might want to look at how close that barrier is to the circuit, perhaps in the future. We've seen at Church how they've really extended out that grassy area now and really improved the barriers. People used to end up in the Simon Belch used to end up in the trees. You can't
airborne into the trees, wasn't it?
And then they replaced it with a barrier there. And I remember, was it one of the MGs? Was it Taylor Smith and Dan Lloyd? Maybe had a big accident, and now it's further back.
Yeah.
So maybe they can look at that. But it's two unfortunate incidents, and we'd never like to see that. So we just wish them all the best.
Yes, indeed.
So we'll just quickly run through because we need to dash. But the championship standings for the British touring cars. There's no point looking at Formula One because Max has won it.
Yeah.
So Turkington still leads. Sutton led after race 2, but Turkington still leads. He is 6 points ahead, so it's very close. Sutton is right in there. And not too far behind still is Ingram.
Yeah.
5 points back from him is Jake Hill. So they're all to play for. Cook's out of it, Butcher's out of it.
Yeah, the top 7 are mathematically still in it, but realistically it's the top 4, isn't it now?
It's the top 4. So the next race is not at Thruxton, believe it or not, with 2 rounds left or 6 races. Silverstone National, straight line speed to the 4. Maybe there'll be a big hybrid effect here, or maybe not. We'll have to see in qualifying. But that's 24th, 25th of September, so we've got a good 3 weeks until
23
that.
days.
The next, wow, there you go. How about that? So then Formula One, it's the Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort. Any guesses who might win that?
Oh, that will be George Russell.
George Russell, there we go. You heard it here first. And that is on this coming Sunday, the 4th of September, depending on when this podcast gets edited and released. So I hope you've all survived the hour or 2 hours or however long it's going to be in the edit of Waffle. But it's some interesting races, Nick. Looking forward to the next rounds.
Yeah, definitely. Silverstone's always an interesting one for different reasons than most of the other tracks, but still interesting.
Yep, so British Touring Cars, it's all coming to a head in the championship, so that's fascinating. Formula One championship's over, but we've all got this crazy gossip going around about the driver market. So I was going to say we keep you updated on both of them, but we won't because we run late each week. But if you want to hear 3 people, sometimes 2, waffle on, then by all means subscribe to this podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. It's on all of them. Colin will be back soon after his jet setting. We miss him, so take care, Colin. And also follow at Final Corner Pod on Twitter or at Bar66 for Colin. I'm at TimMcLeod, and Nick, you are at Manor Howells. So if you disagree with us, send us a tweet because we're open to the feedback and the discussion. But otherwise, I think that's it.
Yeah, that's all for me.
Nice one. All right, thanks for listening. See you later. Final Corner podcast feed. The Final Codpast. Brilliant.
Yeah, the fishing podcast.
Yeah.